Yo, what's going on, everybody? AA Ryan here. Welcome back to PanNerdia, and welcome back to another Better Call Saul Season 5 breakdown. Back to a solo review this week, but nonetheless, we're here, and man, what an episode. Titled Namaste, and greatly titled, as you'll find out with the breakdown here. But we actually start off this week's episode with a little foreshadowing, if you will. It seems like this scene is just happening, in the regular timeline, but it's a little later, and we'll find out. We'll figure out when it happens later. But it starts off with Saul in a kind of like a antique shop, pawn shop, browsing around. And at first, you're not too sure what he's looking for. Classic Heisenverse kind of deal going on there, and he's starting to kind of feel around some things. He's getting the weight of some of the objects. He goes from like a portable TV to like microwaves and heavy Buddha statues and whatnot. And then he finally settles on some bowling balls. Gets 3 bowling balls, that is. $75 for all 3. Not a bad deal. And I'm not too sure what he's using these for, but as he was practicing, like kind of getting the weight of these things, he's kind of practicing like a throw with them. So I was thinking maybe some sort of weapon, something that can do damage, right? So keep that in mind. It's pretty great. But we come into the present, so to speak. Now we're back in the regular timeline there, and we're rolling in with Jimmy and Kim. Jimmy, I would say at this point, after having a fun night, a long night that is, boozing and banging. Actually get some Bob Odenkirk butt cheek. Hell yeah. Pretty funny that they showed that, but they're not the most intimate couple. They're I kind of envy it. They're kind of just like really cool and hang a lot, and then then they'll bang every once in a while, and it's like really awesome. It's a nice freaking deal. There's not like a lot of it's buried under the surface though, but all in all, it's a cool relationship. But yeah, as they're getting ready for their day, probably a little hungover, Jimmy explains that he's got lunch with Howard, so we'll save that for later. And Kim, well, she wants to fix what happened the prior day because it was a bad day, and she needs to own it. She starts off by sweeping up that glass that they threw off the balcony last week. But then we jump over to Saul in action, dealing with some clients that is, and he runs into the 50% off guys, and helps them get what they need, and they almost bail out because they give us a free lawyer, and he's like, well, guess what? You get what you pay for. And I thought it was a great line because, unfortunately, in today's society, that is pretty much that. You get what you pay for. Yeah, you can get cheaper stuff, but you'll learn that cheaper stuff doesn't last as long, unfortunately. So yeah, then we get the lunch with Howard. He's still very proper, to the point, but he's changed the leave, and he's not all based on ego anymore, right? He's Howard 2.0. You still recognize him, but he's got something new about him, right? Something, whether it's self-fulfilling or not, he's definitely a little upgraded. And Jimmy notices, obviously. Saul notices it. He even asks him, why Saul Goodman and who Saul Goodman is. And he tells him, he's like, he's the last ditch effort, the last line of defense for the little guy. And, Howard essentially cuts to the chase and tells him that, he wants him to be a part of HH&M, and that he feels bad. And, it seems a little haphazard at first, but ultimately, it does seem like Howard really wants to kind of fix things as well, right? And I don't think Saul's really having that. Though he does kind of, he plays along. He lets Howard, treat him to lunch and sit on it, think about it, sleep on it, so to speak. And that's when, after they leave, lunch is done, Howard drives away in his car, and he's got a new license plate, Namaste, I think, with the E being a 3. So and like the A being a 4 or something. But so Saul takes note. We then get Kim in the meeting with Mesa Verde trying to fix what was happening with that old guy, and maybe getting some new land and not dealing with him. Maybe still even trying to help him out in a way. But ultimately they come to the point where they're just like, look, we're going to move forward. We don't want to get a setback. And Kim, unfortunately, couldn't really fix the mistake she wanted to fix. But we then do another jump cut over to Mike and his daughter-in-law. Mike's, struggling this season. As good as the season is, though, I really hope this Mike storyline plays out better than it is, because right now it's almost like they didn't know what to do with him this season. That's just my initial reaction. 4 episodes in, and Mike hasn't done much but just brute, right? The first episode he did a lot because he was letting the German guys go, this and that. But now he's just kind of pouting. He's going back to the same people to fight. So, and with what happens to him in this episode, it looks like it could kind of switch up. But is it just going to be him kind of getting put in the, you know what I'm saying? It's almost, part of me it feels that way. The season has been amazing and the best yet. I just want a little bit more from Mike. I don't know how much more they can give him. Obviously, we know where he ends up in Breaking Bad, but this little journey is kind of a, they're kind of, I feel like they're not too sure what to do, but it could all play out. It could be completely wrong here. All in all, he's trying to apologize, and she's just like, not now, let's just, have dinner in a week, something, and, of course he gets mad and pouts away. So then we get this awesome scene, this court scene, right, where Saul's representing this guy, and there's a witness on stand saying that for sure, Saul's client is the guy who stole money out of his cash register. And Saul's just asking, well, are you sure? Are you sure? Kim's there actually too, watching. And she's like even smiling at him. And then it turns out that Saul's like, well, I think you're lying, because my real client's out in the audience and, out in the seats right now. And, the other, he's like, this guy is, just, I forget who he was, just some random dude, blah, blah, blah. And of course it causes a riot, and the jurors are all like, whoa, like what the heck? I thought you said you knew that was the guy. And Saul did a classic bait and switch, and Kim was like, damn, that's good. Even to the point where she waited for him to get done because the judge needed to talk to him afterwards. I'm sure she was a little pissed about that. She's like, Mr. Goodman. It was great. And this is classic Saul shit here, man. And to the point where, I think Kim's starting to break bad a little more, because she asked Jimmy or Saul, that is, to help her to discuss a case, and she needs some help on. So she is, man. She's gonna break bad. I had a theory as I was watching that maybe instead of Kim just getting fed up with Jimmy and leaving, but still being a lawyer, maybe the reason she gets fed up and leaves is because Jimmy puts her in a situation, or she does it to herself by following Jimmy and gets barred, or disbarred herself, to where she's not a lawyer anymore. And that'd be real unfortunate, but that'd be a crazy way of really, because that would be the thing to really be like, enough's enough, I gotta leave you and leave this town, Jimmy. Would be something like that. So that's my theory now. But yeah, man, what a bait and switch. So we get some awesome and very interesting scenes coming up, where we got Hank and Gomez. They're waiting for those drops. You guys remember the drops from last week. And we have Hank and Gomez, posted up. They're waiting for this guy that Gus is essentially giving them because of this whole situation. And then we have this other scene that's going on at the same time, mirroring this wait of Gus waiting for the call, as he does, like in his office at Pollos Hermanos, and Lyle. You guys remember Lyle, the guy that was like all nervous. He's been there. He's a faithful employee to Gus, and Gus, for some reason, some weird act of power, is making Lyle stay as he cleans these fryers, and they're already clean when it starts, but Gus, is like, is this acceptable to you? And So, Lyle starts cleaning it, and it's this interesting scene and dynamic, because it happens a few times where Gus comes back over and is like, well, I'll just do it kind of thing. He's like, you can just go home. And Lyle's like, oh, fuck, I'm not doing it right. I got to do better. And he's like aggressively scrubbing this fryer that's emptied of grease and everything. It's just like scrubbing it till it looks brand new, while Hank and Gomez end up filing this guy, this drug not dealer, but you know what I'm saying? Well, he is a drug dealer, but he's picking up the spot, and they're chasing him down, but this guy seems like he knows that they're watching, which obviously he does, and basically gets them to follow him, a game of cat and mouse through these sewers, so they lose track of him, and he ends up leaving with a box cutter. They skedaddle, and all like $700,000 in cash is left in the dude's car, some drugs, blah, blah, blah. And while all this intensity is happening, like I said, at the same time, Lyle's scrubbing away, sweating and scared for his life in a way. Like, it's weird. It's almost like Gus is losing control, Hank's losing control. Gus is on the edge about that situation. Hank is as well. And it's like this weird duality, but then you got people stuck in the middle. It was interesting, man. It was a cool cut, the way they cut it, the montage. I will have to say, even to a degree, it was slightly confusing, the intensity. It was almost like I thought Gus was going to kill Lyle at one point, like he was going to snap and kill him, and they were going to show, this is the tenacity where Gus is at, but it was like some kind of weird power trip he was having while he was waiting for this thing to happen. It's not like he needed Lyle there for comfort, obviously, so what the hell. It was interesting. I appreciated the scene, but it left me like with a very eerie feeling, even Hank was left with a feeling. He just felt like something was off. He wasn't happy that they got all that, It was, he almost suspected, smelled something a little fishy. Well, then we get over to Saul, going out to the old dude's house from last week. The guy Kim basically stepped all over, which is awesome. Well, it seems like her and Saul worked out a deal, and Saul's going to go get a new client. So he steps in to try to coax this guy into letting him be his lawyer, and the dude's not having it. Well, then Saul's like, just take this picture. It's a proposal. Just look at it. And this scene, man, had me howling. The guy's like, and they actually had this on AMC, which is great too. I didn't expect this. That's why at first I was like flabbergasted, and then it caught on, and I was just like, wow. The picture Saul hands him, he goes, "Whoop, it's a man fucking a horse." They didn't bleep it out or anything, dude. And it was hilarious. And so I was like, yeah, that's exactly what it is. He goes, now picture the horse is Mesa Verde, and I'm the man, and that's what I'm going to do to Mesa Verde. And that was enough to sell the dude to be Saul's client. So he will be representing that man. I forget his name. But it's all part of something Kim's working into the situation, right? So I'm curious how that's gonna play out as well. But I thought that was almost the end of the episode, but then we get finally the payoff with the bowling balls. We get Saul showing up to this house, and I thought this was a continuation of what was going on with that case with the old man and Kim, but this is all Saul here. He found this really nice house. I couldn't tell whose house it was quite yet. He's outside of the gate, and he starts tossing the bowling balls over it. One over, misses his target, throws the next one, hits his target, which was a car, and then his last one breaks the window. And then it shows the license plates of said car, and it was, well, Howard's. And he comes out. Obviously, Saul's already gone, and I guess that was just his way of saying "F you," and I'm not taking your deal. Though Obviously, Howard has no idea that that was Jimmy. But then to end the episode, we get Mike going back for some more with those thugs. Like I said, a little interesting, kind of disappointing to a degree with what has been happening with Mike's story. It's a little slow right now, but hopefully it'll pick up with next week because, well, you think he's gonna start trying to beat the ass of all these dudes again, but they end up getting the upper hand on him, jump him, and then he actually gets stabbed, and then he wakes up in a little house, perhaps on the same street, you don't know yet, and as he walks outside, it looks like he's in freaking Mexico somewhere. So either he might be at that doctor's house, the doctor that saves him and Gus in Breaking Bad when Jesse brings him there. It might be like somewhere out there. This is like where we kind of get that introduction, or what? Because they do have to keep him off radar. They can't have Mike really going to the hospital and getting any sort of attention to Gus, or that operation. So I'm guessing that's what it is. And hopefully it is something along those lines because it'll make things a little more interesting. And it definitely ended on an interesting note with Mike. That's where I'm saying I could be all wrong. Ultimately, Mike's story could pan out and be really badass. Just right now, the poutings are getting a little old. But all in all, guys, I loved episode 4 of Namaste. It was great. Some heartfelt moments. You got to see Saul's ass. You got to see some really great. You got to see a humble Howard. You got to see Howard really, fess up to how he was being an asshole. Whether it was for self-fulfillment or not, it made me feel good. You got to see some great camera work and some great editing and some intense moments with the classic characters like Hank Gomez and Gus, and weird duality between aggressive fry scrubbing and drug deal catching, spelunking as Hank put it. You even got to see some really nice classic Saul stuff here with the bait and switch in the court, which was amazing, as well as the man fucking a horse, which was just the cherry on top. Well done. Great episode. Hope you guys enjoyed as well, and hope you guys enjoyed this breakdown. Peace out.